Can we, I mean, just spinning this positive?
Yeah.
Maybe that's ultimately what comes out of this, right? I don't think jury trials. I don't think this goes to a jury. Here's something else we can just staying at the macro level. The whole basis for this is monopolistic practice, anti-competitive, antitrust. And yet this same week, the ATP goes to the majors and says, hey, listen, here's a proposal for pooling resources. And the majors say, nah, that's not going to work. How can something be antitrust and anti-competitive when the main defendant is getting smacked down by a competitor? But putting that aside, I think the one good thing that could come out of this is, I used to have a nice loft apartment before I moved, and you feel like saying, everybody come in, I'll order dinner, sit around the table. We all agree, whether it's 12-day Masters 1000s idea, whether it's players need more input on the balls, whether the majors cannot continue to give such a paltry amount of revenues and prize money. These are all issues that we can negotiate, that we can have good faith discussions about. Things need to change. Players need more empowerment. Players need more money. We don't need a federal lawsuit in 3 different districts, in 3 different jurisdictions to get what we want. Let's just behave like reasonable people. We don't need to make allegations of conspiracy and what was the term you rigged? Let's everyone
Draconian
take
cartels,
a pause here.
Man.
Take a cartel.
They've turned this in they've turned this country club sport of tennis into fucking narcos.
Right. El Chapo Gadenzi. Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing?
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of thought a little bit of the same thing. I was like, man, they're saying cartel a lot.
Andrea Gadenzi must feel like such a badass given the way he's being
I wonder
portrayed.
how much they spent on the focus group for cartel.
Yeah. And by the way, just for transparency with our audience, I asked Gadenzi to come on the pod this week. He declined. I sent a text to Vashik Pospisil just basically asking on record if this was in fact a class action lawsuit, and that also, that being the case, if the goal was hoping for a trial and not compensation. I don't blame him for not responding to me at all, especially after the episode we had before, but I'll save you the drama. He did not respond to me with those 2 very, very pointed questions. Jon, I don't want to gloss over what you just said there. Before we got to Narcos, which by the way is like one of the best, you watch it if you haven't, if you can handle violence. So you basically pool these organizations together and you're trying to boil the ocean of collusion. And then like in the same week, very publicly, the ATP sending the Slams a proposal. The Slams are saying absolutely not. The Slams said they openly discussed, they brought their own proposal to ATP last year, and the ATP said absolutely not. Is it hard to paint them? I think they each have issues on their own, but is it hard to paint a picture of collusion when they're also releasing public statements basically saying no to each other?
Yeah, when the co-conspirators can't agree. Like, is that a monopoly, or is that collusion, or is that just, chaos with, by the way, the one thing we're not talking about that is like one of the biggest problems in tennis, and is, if not the factor, is at least a factor in all of these discussions, is conflicts of interest in tennis. Mm-hmm. Coaches
which the suit mentions. Let's be clear, the suit mentions those.
Again, that's some of the good stuff that is mentioned. It is.
Exactly.
It's a problem. And it's been that way for a long time. Friends of mine are participants in the conflicts of interest. I don't think they're part of any cartel. I just think the structure and the rules around it wouldn't fly in any other business. There's no other business.
Can I give one example, Andy,
Please.
real quick, off the top of my head? I just thought of, they talk about how the tours have kind of engaged in deals with betting companies. Obviously, betting is a huge part of our sport and revenue. So it's like the deals that are being done with tournaments and betting companies are pretty extensive, and I think bringing a lot of money into the sport. However, players themselves can't have a deal with a betting company. And at face value, you could say, oh, well, yeah, because they could look like you say, like a conflict of interest. However, in other sports, athletes can promote betting companies. They just can't promote betting companies on their own sport. I've seen NBA players do betting ads for NFL season. Like, they can't talk about betting on their own sport. They can mention the betting sites, so that I don't want to give any names out on here, just so let you kind of handle that. But like, Yeah, like they can mention any of the betting platforms on their programs. Like so many of the sports podcasts are funded by betting programs. So tennis seems to be the only sport that won't allow athletes to delve into that from an endorsement side. But however, the tournaments can. And so you could look at that as like, that's a bit unfair. And the suit mentions it, and I think it explains it pretty well.
Well, I'm going to get back specifically to the betting thing you mentioned and explain my own experience with it, of which I was the beneficiary. But is it an impossibility for someone to be unbiased if they're simultaneously an ATP board member and also coaching someone on the ATP tour, and you're talking about court surfaces, and the decision is between slow courts that don't benefit your player and fast courts that would benefit your player and or country? Chris, like, I don't know that many Americans would go in there and push for, however many for, so I think there's a direct conflict. It's, the same agency that represents the tournaments, the TV rights also represent the agents, which then funnel information down to the players. Right. So the version that Alcaraz is getting is a biased version by virtue of who owns the TV right. Like, so there's a million layers to this, so conflicts of interest are rampant in tennis, as rampant as I've seen in any sport. And it's a problem which then dictates an environment of self-protection. Because if you get in and you sit in, then all of a sudden there's more influence, there's more power, at least in your little micro universe. And then that bleeds out into the other sport, and then we're divided. And that's the way it's lived for 40 years. Specific to betting companies, I'll tell you a real story. So Betway's looking for someone. I don't comment. I don't predict odds on matches. I don't tell people what to bet, how to bet. I do short, prediction videos and put them out and do an ad a year that literally gives no advice on betting. And Betway, literally, I think they ended up with me because I was the only voice on earth that had no badge as far as like a player guest, a coach, TV coverage, media badge at a tournament, association with anyone or anything for the past like 10 years. Right. And so I ended up, getting this deal by virtue of there not being anyone else that could possibly on earth take it, because I have no relationship or conflict with, any player, person or thing. I like to maintain an independent voice, which is a weird thing for someone who's labeled as establishment, Chris. But to your point, like, should I be getting that, or should the people who are actually providing the value and the watchable product be benefiting from that? Probably the people that are creating the watchable product, I would guess. But it's like selective conflicts and doing the right thing. And then when it's like baked in and it's something that's always been there, you kind of look the other way, right? Which is unfortunate. JW, what else are we missing? Because I think I've already said this, but we're shooting this on a Monday. Your SI column comes out. You did a full review of all things, of all this, which I asked you, and you said I could forward on to Chris. It should be out as people are listening to this show. I don't know that I could have put together in summation anything better than what you put out, because I think any rational mind says, yeah, there are macro issues which were addressed. And also, one, are you the person to be delivering this based on track record? And two, why take the wild swings with details of things that are easily disproved? Where does that leave us? Like, what are the possible outcomes? Short-term hurdles, long-term hurdles.
I made the analogy in the piece to a ball machine, right? So instead of just, hey, I'm going to take one swing, we're going to see how it goes. This is 120, and some of them are hit really cleanly, right? The fact that one tournament was willing to pay the players more and it got voted down, that's really problematic. On the other hand, Chris laid out a bunch of them. I had my own. I mean, there are elements of this lawsuit that are they're contradictory. They're frankly, they're just kind of weird. I mean, Holger Rune getting invited to an exhibition where he'd never won a major.
Why is he catching strays? Okay, so
why is he catching strays?
Stick with that. But can you be a group that says we represent all players, release a statement after the Sinner thing, throwing him under the bus, consistently get the details of his case wrong if you also are claiming to represent him as a player, and then throwing strays at random players throughout this lawsuit. Like that's just unnecessary to Chris. I mean, to Chris, it's unnecessary.
Yeah. No, and think about the context too. I mean, Yannick Sinner agreed. He was approached to and basically agreed to his plea bargain deal. We can pick apart the whole ITIA process. We can talk about Sinner. We have at great length, but I don't know if I'm representing players and the authorities are coming to them to sign off on an offer. That sounds like empowerment. If there's an exhibition going on and Holger Rune has not won a major and yet he is subjectively being asked to participate because the organizers think he's a marketable name, I don't know if I'm representing players. I'm fully in favor of that. That's great. So I think there were points in the lawsuit that were contradictory too. I'm really torn on this, and I think we all should be, honestly, because there is no doubt that players need a louder voice. They need more money. They need more process. I mean, they need more say in everything from a doping policy to what brand of balls we're using. These conflicts of interest need to be attacked. The fact that a tournament is offering the players more money and that is being turned down by the tours that allegedly are their governing body. I mean, there's some really problematic things that go on in tennis that really disadvantage the players. And yet this lawsuit is so all over the map. It's really kind of, if you're not going to listen to us and you're not going to return our emails, we're just going to come with the kitchen sink. We're coming with, we're emptying the chamber here. And it's kind of a mess. And I'm not sure how the tours even go about defending themselves. There's so many fundamental questions, right? Why are not the four majors that are a lot more capitalized than the ATP and the WTA, why are they not given harsher treatment? So I would like to think that this will resolve itself with more player voice, with some policies. Again, my big takeaway here, something can be really, a messed up situation without being illegal, a conspiracy, the deep throat. I can't remember. I mean, I'm not looking at my lawsuit now, but the language is so over the top. It really undermines credibility. And I think a lot of this is like, yeah, it's messed up. And you know what you do when things are messed up? You sit down and reasonable people can come to good faith resolutions and change things like the radius of exhibitions and the policy for when the ITIA wants your phone. Those all can be discussed and negotiated without having a federal lawsuit alleging anti-competitive practices. So I'm hoping, honestly, I'm hoping this ultimately puts tennis in a better place and gives players more muscle and more voice. But boy, is this was this a moonshot?
JW, I want to just chime in on one quick thing you said, because you said it a few times that, you'd like to think that these issues could have been resolved by rational people sitting down and just kind of hashing out the differences. One thing I do know about the PTPA is that they have been extremely frustrated with the inability to be able to sit down and try to hash these things out like civilized adults, because they feel like they're not, I think, being taken seriously. So I think this is kind of their effort, or they're showing that they want to be taken seriously. And while we can probably agree to disagree on certain things, the manner in which they went about it, it seems like for however many years since they've been in existence, I think 2017 was the first PTPA meeting that I was actually at, funny enough. I had no idea what was going on. I was like, wait, what? The tours are bad? Like, I just got a wild card in the US Open. I think it's great. Since that time, they haven't really, I think, gained any ground on trying to go about it in the diplomatic way, because they feel like they've been kind of shunned aside. So I guess just understanding that and saying, like you say, the language in it is so strong. Like you say, this is their home run hit. This is their chance to say, hey, you guys are going to have to start taking it seriously. And that's just my interpretation of what is being done, because I just don't see. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I want to see how it's going to play out. I genuinely want to see how this plays out. And I know that members of the PTPA have just been super frustrated that they haven't been taken seriously. So, hey, we're going to launch a federal lawsuit, and you're going to have to take it seriously. Maybe this is their show of, hey, maybe we can come to some middle ground where we can represent the players and be, the one thing, again, and I know I've been very critical of certain aspects of it. The thing that I think the lawsuit does really well is that it shows, and I think I said it a little bit earlier, how little freedom we have as independent contractors. We're told over and over again, we're independent contractors. But when it comes time to exercise that independence and go to try to do something else. In exhibition, there's so many rules and caveats that limit our ability to actually do the things that are involved with being independent contractors. It's like, if we're independent contractors, let us be independent contractors and let us like have a say so in, if we want to forego a Masters 1000 to go play an exhibition and we're 25 in the world, we should be able to do that. But we can't because of how the rules kind of force us to play, how the rules change. And like you say, you highlighted a lot of my points that they highlighted pretty well. The change in balls, the extending the Masters 1000 to 12-day events without the players having a say so, like less time off. Like they highlight a lot of really good stuff. And when it comes to, and I think the main thing that the PTPA wants, if they want to have an ability to collectively bargain, but to have a say so in these changes, but the reason they can't collectively bargain is because, again, they're independent contractors. Independent contractors cannot collectively bargain. So that's what they keep going back to. It's like, you're independent contractors, but you're treated like employees, but you don't have the same rights as employees. And I think they make a pretty good case for it in certain instances. But again, they went for the home run hit for sure.
I agree with all the issues you're talking about, Chris, but like, do you have to have some sort of track record of something to demand a seat at the table?